Welcome, everybody. Excited to be back with Jennifer Easterling. I call her Jen for short, of course. She is with Art Class Curator, and together we are going to share Art Class Curator curriculum from with Nasco. It's a partnership that we do, and this is the high school version of the curriculum, so 9 to 12. So if you are middle school, you can consider perspectives. It could work. I would probably recommend World Mosaic because there's a little bit more content as it applies to lesson plans, and it's probably easier to ramp something up than it is to maybe bring it down a level. And perspectives has a little bit of a maturity level to it, and we can talk a little bit more about that. But welcome, everybody. I am happy to be here, and I'm happy to get started. I'm going to turn this stage right over to Jen, and she can tell you a little bit about perspectives, and then from there, we will talk about the art making. I had fun, but I'm just going to say right from the get-go, be nice, because I needed you. I needed the art teacher bad in all of this. So Jen, welcome, and thanks for being with me today.
Thank you so much, Chris. You did an amazing job. I love it. It's all about your own voice. So, it
is.
I think you did a great job. Well, thank you so much for having me. Like I said, I'm Jen Easterling, and I'll go ahead and share my screen real fast so you can see my slide. All right. All good? All right, so like I said, I'm Jen Easterling. I work with Art Class Curator. I have now for 3 years, but prior to that, I was in the classroom for 11, including teaching through the pandemic, which was a unique experience for all of us. So I definitely understand that. My main focus was 7th through 12th grade, but I have taught all levels. So that's it's a lot of fun. Like, I really enjoy working with the kids and connecting with them. So I'm doing that just in a whole new way, but loving every minute of it. And we're so grateful to Nasco to be able to have this partnership and work with them. So that's about a little bit about me, but I am going to dive into Art Class Curator. So if you're not familiar with us, we provide a wide range of art materials for the classroom. And Cindy Ingram is the founder and CEO. And what drove her to create Art Class Curator is that when she was in the classroom, she started looking for different information on how to connect kids better with works of art, and she couldn't find it. So she started creating her own content, and it has just really grown from there into this incredible resource. So what you see here is some of the different things that we offer and different things that we do as far as all kinds of content and different ways of looking at art. We have a library, we have this whole Spark system that was hybrid for your classroom. And now we have these two awesome curriculums, Perspectives and Mosaic. So like Chris said, Perspectives focuses more on high school, kind of an Art 1 level. It can be amped up pretty easily to higher level, like Art 2. I even did some of these things with my AP kids, just, pushed them a little bit in different ways. And I also did it with 8th grade and 7th grade. So there's definitely a lot of flexibility there, and which is nice regarding Perspectives. With Mosaic, it's a little bit more focused on K through 5. So, and that's a different one. We have some great webinars on that if you'd like more information. So what we believe in at Art Class Curator is that it's all about connection. And we know how important art is, that it fosters so much more than just making things. You're fostering social emotional skills and critical thinking, and you're empowering students and helping them to problem solve and better understand themselves, the community, the world, all of that. So it's so much more than just making crafts, is what some people see it as. And so we as art teachers know how important and how valuable art is for kids in within their learning within school. So if you'd like a copy of this poster, you can see it's a free download. If you just go to artclasscurator.com/poster, you can download that poster, print it, and hang it in your classroom and share it with everyone. So we love this quote: art changes people and people change the world. And we completely believe this at Art Class Curator. And, we want to change those kids so that they can go out into the world and make the world a better place through art. So like I said, what we believe is that art is a connection, and it's we want to foster those connections between the teacher and the art and the student and the art, artwork itself, and then the art making. And how can we bring all of these things together to connect? And so by doing so, the teacher is going to learn more about the student's going to learn more about the teacher, you learn more about the artwork. So and then you make things yourself. So it's all interconnected. So instead of what we like to say, instead of art appreciation, we like art connection, because it's all about those connections. And Cindy likes to ask the question, what is it that you really want your kids to remember and take away 20 years from now? Is it how to shade a sphere, or is it the connections that they had with works of art and with artists as they were looking at them? And so much like we feel like that's how powerful we feel those art connections are, is we want them to remember it. And we each have our own stories about how we've connected with art, and we've watched our students connect with art, and they're really, really strong, powerful connections. So more specifically about perspectives, it is a thematic art course. And so like I said, it's geared toward Art 1, but it can easily be amped up or kind of taken down according to the level of your students and what their needs are. And we're going to go through this a little bit more. If you've got questions, we've got a question and answer portion at the end. You can just write it down or stick it in the chat, and we'll definitely answer as we go. So with perspectives, it's very much a cross-curricular and social emotional learning, empowering students. There's all of that built in within this curriculum. And so it is a full year, and it's built around 10 themed units. And we feature different artworks to help draw those students in. We've got activities to help them, spark that deep learning and get them to connect with it. And then somehow a project to connect back with the artworks and the artist. And, you're pushing that creativity and the artistic skill. And what's not on here, I just realized, is a huge component of all of this is reflection. And this is something that we've added more in and really push, is that reflection. And how do students pull everything that they've learned and connect it within themselves and, the world on a whole, much bigger. So with perspectives, we're bringing together art history, art appreciation, art making, and it's very comprehensive. Like, this entire curriculum is very comprehensive, and it engages students through these meaningful experiences. We want them to remember this and be able to connect with art in new ways that, maybe they hadn't before, hadn't thought about it. We do have lots of thought-provoking things, so it's pushing that idea. We want them to think, we want them to problem solve, we want them to just think differently about it. And we'll talk about that more later. And then this idea of idea-centered projects using a wide variety of media. So these are the themes that we use for perspectives. And we're going to go in depth a little bit more on these, and I'll show you. So the first one is Why Art Matters. And what you see is, like, these are the different artworks that we touch on in the Why Art Matters to kick off the curriculum with at the beginning of the year, getting them in touch with, what is art and why does it matter? And so we look at Jungkwik Smith, we look at Duchamp, we look at Congo, who was a monkey who painted, and which Chris and I have talked about that one before. It's a lot of fun, but it poses all of these questions and puzzles about it.
I get real jealous of Congo.
He's a lot of fun.
Paints better than I do.
In Unit 2, we examine the sketchbook, and this is one of my favorite units. I always love to make sketchbooks from scratch with students, where they just get to go wild and just play with art and create their own unique book. But we also look at like, why do artists keep sketchbooks and what's the importance behind it? Then we dive into what artists see, like what do they see around them and how do they see things differently? We dive into the human experience, what it's like to be a human. We dive into all kinds of emotions and feelings and looking how artists portray those in the world or within their artwork. And they're all so different, and it's amazing. And so we really connect to the SEL stuff in this unit. Like you will see it all the way across, but this one has a lot in it. Then we move on to identity and looking at like who you are as a person, who you are as an artist, and how artists put their identity into their artwork. We dive into community and how artworks connect communities, and artists are connected to their communities through their art. And so lots of different ways of this idea of community and art. We dive into the natural world, how the natural world is portrayed in art, and how artists have their own take. So you're going from what they see to how they portray it in art. Then we dive into cultures and how different cultures around the world create art in many beautiful and different ways. Then we look at communication and how art is a communication tool and how artists have used it to communicate different ideas and feelings and thoughts and emotions and you name it. And then the last one in Unit 10, we dive into the power of voice. So connecting all of these themes back to the student and how they are able to use their voice to then go into the world and create art. And I just love this unit. It's another one of my favorites. So how we approach all of this in perspectives is, again, like I said, it's heavy with the social emotional learning, where students are really examining who they are and how they connect with the world, what they're feeling and how they can better connect with that. And we created this I Feel wheel. It was inspired by some other ones out there, but this is our own version. And Brene Brown talks a lot about how most people can only identify, 3 or 4 emotions. You're happy, sad, mad, angry, kind of like that. But there's so many more out there. And so we help students to identify all these emotions that they might see in art, and then take some of them and put it into their own. So definitely pushing them in lots of different ways. We do a lot of critical thinking about stuff. And you also saw that we touch on art across time and culture. So it's not necessarily art history based as far as chronological based. We're looking at all kinds of things and connecting things across cultures, across the world, across time. It's heavy on student voice. So most of the projects have that heavy student voice connected back in. And how is the student able to take what they see, what they're learning, and apply that to their own art, and then, put it back out there for the world. There's a huge amount of flexibility for the teacher, and we'll go into what all that flexibility looks like. And then within that, there's also structured or choice-based options as far as the project making. So it's made to be really flexible and to fit each teacher's need, as because every classroom's unique, every teacher's unique, every student's unique. So we wanted it to fit into your space as you need it. So within the SEL connection, because that's a big thing right now, what this curriculum does is regarding the self-awareness. They're exploring personal interests, they're recognizing and identifying and describing emotions, they're exploring personal identity, values, biases, purpose, they're uncovering strengths and boost self-confidence, and discovering who they are and their place in the world. So we're hitting on all of these things as we're talking about the art, we're looking about it, we're doing activities. And self-management, they're setting and accomplishing goals, they're reflecting on their learning experiences, they learn how to work in groups and collaborate and give peer feedback in positive manners. And they're developing creative planning and organizational skills. The students are taking ownership of the learning process. So all that's tied back to self-management. With the responsible decision-making, lots of critical thinking skills, analyzing various perspectives, looking at art and evaluating, analyze, compare, criticize. They're looking at ethical responsibility, curiosity, and experimentation in a safe environment. So there's a lot of, it's really trying to foster that safe environment for them to be curious about art, be curious about artworks, ask questions, not be afraid to ask those questions, and look at how you can have a great conversation in a safe place. So there is a lot of that. Then with the social awareness, we're exploring lots of diverse artists and artworks. Like I said, we're traveling all around the world. We're connecting things across cultures and time periods. With this, we help students to develop empathy and compassion, creating a classroom of culture and collaboration, community. Lots of classroom discussions and group work. So they're learning how to interact and act and react with their peers in a healthy and safe manner. And then also analyzing perspectives, putting themselves in the shoes of different people, of different artists, of different figures in the artwork, and thinking about how they might feel or how they might think about something or how they might see the world. With the relationship skills, again, back to the classroom discussions and critiques, lots of group work, creating that culture of collaboration. Collaborative projects. So there's individual projects, but there's also collaborative projects, or it may start off as an individual project, but then somehow connect to everyone else's project. So there's lots of ways we do that. And then modeling all these things for the teacher. So that's just how this curriculum we feel connects back to the SEL. Because I know that's like I said, a hot thing that districts are really looking for and admin are looking for. So there's a lot of that built in. So for each unit within perspectives, you get a lesson plan with an overview. You've got the national art standards already built in. We have broken them down for different states who rely heavily on their own standards. And if we don't have that already, we can always do that for you. If we don't have that state specific, we can do that pretty easily for you. There's objectives, flexible duration of time. So it's made to fit into your schedule as, because like I said, every class is different, every school is different. So you can use that as you need. Got vocabulary words to concentrate on. Your supply lists are already made up for the class if you want to use them. And then Nasco even made awesome kits for you. So if you want to follow along exactly what the lesson says, you can go on Nasco's website, tell them exactly which kit you want, or if you want all of it, it's all there created for you, which makes it super easy on you. And you can take your summer and your year back and you're not having to worry about, all the detail planning. And then it also gives you a lesson sequence to follow if you would like. So again, with that flexibility, it's there for you. If you have no idea what to do, or if you want to take bits and pieces, you are welcome to do that too. So you also get a lesson PowerPoint that includes all the artworks. It includes info about the artist, maps around the world where we're looking at. Any of the activities, like if you're looking at different artworks, not just our two main anchor artworks for each unit, it'll, if we have permissions, that was one big goal, is we made sure we had permission for everything. We've created a slide for you. We also created tons and tons and tons of worksheets and handouts. So if you might possibly need or want a worksheet or a handout to go with an activity, we made one for you. So you don't have to create that. You also don't have to use it. So it's kind of like if you want everyone to write in their sketchbook about something, you can do that, or you can give them the handout if that's easier. So again, that flexibility within your classroom. You get discussion guides that talk about the two main artworks that we feature for each unit. And it's got info about the artwork itself. It has discussion questions. It's got info about the artist. There's a theme-inspired project that links back to the artworks. You have project planning guides to help students plan out their projects. You have a reflection activity, a unique reflection activity that includes specific questions to that unit and that artwork with every unit. And then any other additional resource you might need. So there's a lot. I think there's like at least 200 files, something like that, just for perspectives alone. Like there's a lot there. So basically to take the work off of you. And how we have framed everything is through this curate, discuss, engage, extend, and reflect framework. So we feel like this fosters really good creativity and pushes the kids to think about things in new ways. And we really like this framework. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that in depth. So to start off, we start with Curate. So what you're doing is you're giving students this collection of artists and artworks. And here's just a sampling. These are most of the main artworks. This is not all of the additional artists and artworks that we talk about, but these are most of the main ones that are your anchor artworks for each unit. So you can see you're giving them this whole idea of like, there's a lot out there. So this is just a sample lesson plan from the human experience unit. You can see there's a wide range in there. And then this is a sample PowerPoint from the cultures. And this isn't even all of it. This is just a small snippet of that PowerPoint, but you can see how you have different objectives and activities and where we're looking at in the world, where the artwork may have originated, where it is now, where it was last known, that kind of thing. So giving students an idea around the world of where we're looking and where we're exploring. Then we move into the discuss portion of the framework. So we feel like discuss is a huge portion of how students learn. You're talking about it, you're thinking about it, you're discussing with the class, you're discussing with a partner, a small group, or you're even writing your thoughts on paper. But whenever you have students discuss, we're training them on how to lead powerful discussions. And we have training for you on how to do this, how to lead a really powerful discussion. And we have discussion guides that can guide you through it. Again, artwork info and PowerPoint with images, but we have training for you, but at the same time, you're turning around and you're training the students on how to have a good, healthy, inspiring, thoughtful discussion about artworks. And so these were always some of my favorite things to do with the students, is to have these discussions, because you never knew what they were going to come up with and how they might see something that I'd never thought of. I always love that. And there was never a day that I didn't come away surprised about, oh, wow, I didn't think of that. That was amazing thought by a student, or amazing insight. So we feel like discussion is, incredibly powerful. So here's an example of a discussion activity. So one of the artworks is this artwork by Angelica Kaufman, self-portrait of the artist hesitating between the arts and music, the arts of music and painting. So at this time, women were not always allowed lots of options. They were expected maybe to go into music, but she was able to have the choice between art and music. And so you can see right here, she's kind of hesitating between the two. But before we give them any of that information, we just have them look at it and give them some questions to kind of guide them and see, push their thinking in different ways. And we always like to start off with what's going on here and what makes you say that. So those are always our first questions, just to get the kids looking at it and get their interpretation right off the bat without giving any ideas, bias, thoughts, opinions, facts. Just what do you see? And it's very non-intimidating. If you say, well, what do you see? Because there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. Each person might see something different. And then we build on the questions from there that go a little bit more in depth. So you could go on to say, what are the objects that the women are holding, and where's the one pointing? You might say, what's going to happen next? What would it feel like to be in the shoes of the central woman having to choose? What would it be like to be one of the other figures? And just pushing their thinking through those different questions. And you see they'll get more and more in depth. So we always like to leave them really open-ended, if at all possible, so that there's no right or wrong answer. And a lot of times we don't know, there might be some study somewhere that gives us a little bit more insight, but it's okay to not know. And that's, we've kind of lost that ability to wonder. Whenever you have a phone or computer access, you can look anything up anytime, anywhere, and know it. But what we like to do is foster that creativity, foster that wonder about different things that you may not know. And it's okay. It's okay if we don't know the answer. It's okay if we end and we don't have a final, concrete answer. It's all right. It's okay to wonder. We usually have some kind of social emotional learning question in there. Again, like I said, what does it feel like to be this? Then we push that visual analysis. And so you start to kind of get maybe a little bit more into the elements and principles of art, which those can easily be pushed in a lot more depending on, how much you want to add. So you're looking at, how does the artist use that line and the color to create the pop, especially like the scarf? Why might she try to use those colors? Look at the lines that are going throughout the painting to create emphasis. So you're working in that art language. You're also looking at cross-curricular. Whenever you say what happens next, you're pushing that critical thinking. You can even have them write or act out. Thinking about like the scene in the background. Where are they geographically? Is this a real place or is this something imaginary? So really able to pull in those different subjects, and then always coming back to what's that personal connection with this artwork. So then next we engage students. So it's all about getting them excited and getting them moving and thinking about that. So different ways that we engage it, like here's a list of a few that we have. So we have things like I am poem, where the student is writing a poem about I am, and then fill in the blank. So it could be they're putting themselves in the position of the central figure of the artwork. Or maybe they're writing from the standpoint of the viewer looking at the artwork, or maybe they're writing from the standpoint of the artist creating the artwork. So there's lots of different viewpoints, but I always love that I am poem because it really brings out the students' thoughts and opinions in ways I would have never thought they were connecting with it. So that's, again, I would read them and get goosebumps every time, I would start tearing up reading these amazing connections. We have different ones where they're creating conversations between the figures in the artwork. What do you think might be going on behind the scenes? You might be writing from a figure, from a standpoint of a figure in the artwork. We might have you stand like the artist or like a figure in the artwork. And what does it feel like to stand, this way? Do you feel powerful and strong, or do you feel sad and, helpless, and so drawing back on those that I feel where we looked at it earlier, where you're drawing on those different emotions. You think about how much your body and your physicality connects to those different emotions and how artists portrayed that in the artworks. You might create a shape poem to fill in the different spaces in your design. So you create a design and then you write word, you create a poem to fill in those spaces. So it's not just line by line, it might be moving and all kinds of cool things. We have lots of in poetry interpretation, where they're pulling in different, either you're writing poems or you're looking at poems and seeing how they connect in with the artworks. And then where we've got contour portraits, where they're drawing themselves, and then you fill each other's portrait in with compliments about that person. So that's a fun one to really get kids to connect with each other across the classroom and build that positive environment. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Like I said, there's so many more activities. There's multiple options within each unit. So this is just a sample of different activities. So each page is a different activity that went with just this identity unit. And I'm not sure that that's all of them, but you can see we created some sort of handout to go with each one, just to make it easy on you if you want to use them. Then there's also that discussion guide there in the bottom left that gives you more information about that artwork. And this is such a fun artwork. It's another one of my favorites, but I think all of them are just about some of my favorites. So it's hard to kind of, I just connected with them in so many different ways every time I look at them, and especially when you start to know a little bit of background behind it, you connect with it even more, or I did anyway. So it was a lot of fun working on this project. So here's an example of that I am poem. So the instructions for this one: imagine you're one of the people in the Dorothea Lange photograph taken during the Great Depression. Fill in the prompts as the character to write a poem that describes them. So they might choose that central figure, or they might choose one of the others. And, they're writing, I am, I see, I feel, I hear, all that. So really, really exploring empathy within this powerful photograph. We have fun things like drawing description game, where one student is looking at an artwork and describing it to the other one, who's having to draw what they think the artworks looks like without seeing it. So it's a fun way to kind of break down those barriers and work on the communication and the language between students. We also have this is the one Chris and I were talking about a little bit earlier with Congo, where there's puzzles about art. It comes from a really great book called Puzzles About Art. Trying to remember the thing, an aesthetics casebook. So I think it's out of print now, but if you have it, it's really, really great. It gives all of these puzzles about art and like, what would you do in this situation? What would you think? So they're a lot of fun because there's no right or wrong answers, and it's fun to get students to have really in-depth, and you get to have debates in your class about all kinds of things. So they're really fun. We even have compare contrast. You know, both of these were about the same subject and painted about the same time, but one was painted by a woman and one was painted by a man. And so we look at how that might have played into how the artist set up the artwork and created their composition around it. Then we move into extend. So this is the project portion of the lesson plan. So we've talked about it, we've looked at it, we've done some activities to get students thinking and connecting with the artwork. Now it's time to actually make their own project. So we have two different kinds. We have directed projects where it gives you more step-by-step on how to create something, or we give you more of a broad general idea that's perfect for student choice. And if you have a tab classroom, you know, this fits right in with that. Or it might be something that kind of spans across both. So if you like the theme of one, but you want a little bit more direction of the other, there's definitely that flexibility built in. Or you like this idea, but you want to make it with different supplies because that's what you have, or you're really interested in this. It's, you know, completely doable, which is great fun. I had a hard time narrowing down exactly what I wanted to do with each project. So once the idea started going, you know, it was like, oh, I could do this or this or this. So realize that, you know, there's a lot of that flexibility built in. So with some of the projects, there's ready-made sculptures that the students build. Like I said, you make sketchbooks from scratch and sew them. So they learn about the process of bookmaking, and then they can keep everything in their sketchbook all year long, but they've got this amazing object that they made themselves. You have observation drawings, expressive, strong emotional drawings, dynamic self-portraits, low relief art boards, which are installations. They start off as a singular project, and then in the end, they connect them across the entire class. And then reimagining natural objects, focusing on rhythm and movement. So that's just, again, a sample of the directed projects. For the choice-based projects, they explore journey and they connect to the human experience, unique self-portraits, representing community, art in the environment, curate student exhibitions, highlighting non-Western artworks, incorporating text and imagery to deepen meanings and social issues. So lots of different ways, more thematic, that you can kind of push the students. So here's an example from the identity unit, where they've got the project planning guide to help students start thinking, brainstorming, get some ideas on paper. This is great to switch with students or to even turn into you, just, you know, to help them get that plan going and push their ideas in different ways, but also record how you started and how they ended. Then we have the project. So this is all about identity and different things that are important to the student and what they see, you know. So this student was bringing in different aspects of culture and different objects that were important to her. As you know, you see all the different things. She even has her fingerprints in there. So it's all different ways of how she was creating this idea of identity and her identity around it. And then you have the reflection. So somehow we're looking back at this project and the whole thing and, you know, bringing it all together. How did you connect, or how can we connect everything that we've learned and really internalize it? And then we move into reflect. But before we do that, we can switch over real fast, Chris, and we can show them our projects, because we actually looked at and kind of made projects for the power of voice. So let me stop sharing my screen for a second. And I will flip my camera. All right, so
good.
this was my power of voice, which I started playing with. So it's all about the students using this idea of them and how they are going to use their voice in the world. So there's a lot of different layers. So with more the directed project, it incorporates printmaking and a self-portrait and then writing in different ways. So I had fun layering with collage and printmaking. I printed on all kinds of different papers, then it ended up collaging them into one. And then this, I kind of contour of my face is a screen print that I cut up and incorporated back in. But I printed on maps, had all these great maps with that I just printed on and then cut up and incorporated and collaged back in. I even printed on vellum. So some of them you can kind of see, some of it I printed directly on it. Then it's printing on like newspaper, and kind of I had this great newspaper from China that I was having fun with, like the textures and the different all different kinds of things going on. I even had old pages that we did different activities that were my words that I printed on and cut up and incorporated them back into the artwork. And then for the writing, I went off of the I Am poem and I just wrote about myself over and over and over again and layered it all in there. So it was all about, how am I using my voice to communicate to the world, or, what do I want people to know about me and who I am and my identity? So
Jen, did you do the writing after you did the collaging?
both. I did some of both. So there was printmaking straight onto the map, and then I wrote around it, and then I collaged more things on top for aesthetics and in and around. So even with that, like some of it's just secret to me, which I think is kind of fun. Like I know what I wrote, but other people may not get the whole picture, and that's totally fine. So it's a safe way to get students to write about their artwork and pour their identity into it without feeling like, they're bearing their soul or whatever, so you can incorporate all kinds of layers of text and things.
Love it. I was lucky enough that I got to see Jen's first before I did mine, but I also found myself being a little bit of a rule follower and saw that, it suggested, doing a lino cut. And I am just going to say, teacher, I needed you. I needed you really bad, all of you, because clearly Chrissy isn't that good at lino cutting. I sort of Sharpied on my image and then was carving. And I tried to use this, like the small tool, the speedball lino carve. And because I just didn't want really big, thick lines, but then I was nervous because I wasn't digging deep enough. So I kept going back in and I practiced it on some gold paint. I don't know why, it just happened to be around. I thought that would be kind of cool. And it wasn't going so great. I probably should have used block printing. I was using Crayola portfolio acrylic in black. So then when I did it in black, it was really stark. So then I had cleaned my brayer, like just cleaned my brayer like this. And it had some paper that had a little bit of black. And so then I put the gold on top. And it was really kind of like muted and distorted. And then I'm like, well, that is better than this. And it made me feel like I wasn't like I was purposely doing it, which I wasn't. It was a happy accident, as Bob Ross would say. But what I liked is that the printing behind here is actually really easily done at an elementary level, which was bubble tape. Or bubble wrap. You put the paint on the bubble wrap and then you print it, and it made these fun polka dots back there. So I love that. And then I just continued to like layer different pieces. I often use the Bible in my art, and some people are horribly offended by that, and I apologize for that. But I always say, a Bible, and when I say a Bible, if you need a Bible, the Goodwill has thousands of them because everybody gets them for gifts and then they just give them away eventually. So I always figure it's better to put them in art and somewhat reflect it that way than it is for it to be sitting never to be bought again. So I picked out some things that were important to me there. These interesting sort of neon-y colored flags happen to be from the background that we used in our Maker Monday birthday party. So I'm very much an art teacher and I like to use scrap paper that I have around. Plus I thought it reflected a little bit of my personality. And then I started doing some things like I did an I am, but I also did an I am like in terms of my emotions, because we talk a lot about the social emotional part. So I just really listed as many emotions that would describe me. I did an I love, things that I love that would tell you a little bit about me, things that I thought were important, and things that I would hold maybe dear to me, and then things that I wanted people to know, like the world is a good place. If we make it good. And so just sort of, I don't think I used any actual sayings of anyone, but anyways, I think you could put quotes on. And so that's sort of how mine ended up to be, scrappy. And I think if I had more time to plan, and that's when that project planning guide activity sheet comes in real handy. Plus discussing it with an art teacher would make you better. So I always put myself out there because I can, and no harm done, but it definitely tells you lots of stuff. I did gather some papers up because these are painted papers, and this actually came from a lesson plan from Jeannie Styczynski, otherwise known as Mrs. Jeannie. She is an artist and an illustrator, and she uses the method of taking newspaper, and a lot of times she even dilutes the acrylic and paints it on there so that you can truly like see the writing through it. And I know this is not giving you the greatest of shots, but it would be cool if you picked out something that maybe had something to do with the importance of your life. Maybe it's the newspaper from your birthday or something. And then you could layer on top of it with prints and then continue to layer, or at this point, maybe you journal on it and then begin to layer on it. But I think there's so much choice and adaptation and flexibility that both students and teachers really, really love it. And there are those students that really need you to give them the steps, but then there's others that just want to springboard off of it and have fun. Sorry, Jen, I kind of took over the stage.
No,
I get excited about that, but
that's wonderful. Now I was going to also show you what I used for my printing. I don't know if you've seen these before. They are called snap blocks, or at least that's what we call them. And they are styrofoam blocks that carpet cleaners use to lift up your furniture before they clean your carpet. And I was in a workshop many years ago with Cheryl Evans, and she was talking about the wonders of these for printmaking, because somebody came in to clean her carpets. She's like, oh, those are amazing. What can I do with them? And yeah, I've had a lot of fun. They're super cheap and you can get a whole bunch of them. And they come in large sheets, and then you can just snap them to whatever size you want. But they come in like 24 by 36. And
where did you say you can get them?
From anybody that that does like carpet cleaning. There was a guy that she put out there, but I had his contact info somewhere many years ago, but I have no idea where it is at this point. I just have all these left. Yeah, somebody who cleans carpets, but they're called snap blocks. Yeah, so you can print really, really huge sizes, or you can snap them down to individual ones. And I like it because you can push in on either side and you can see how deep they are. So you can get a pretty good cut, and it's real easy to manipulate. So for these, like I drew it on I had my 7 and 4-year-old helping me draw. So, I mean, it was pretty easy for them to do, but then I went back and I cut it down so that just the shape would show. And that was giving me, prints
Neat.
like that. So there's different ways to do it. We would do, sometimes we would do meat trays, the styrofoam meat trays.
Yep.
And we could carve into that. So there are other options if you can't do lino cut, or if you don't have the tools or the budget or whatever else. There's lots of different ways to incorporate that printmaking, or even just like on the bubbles like you did, and print that way. Plastic wrap and all kinds of.
Yes.
So you're still learning. You're learning about the process if you don't want to do the lino cut, but you can also do that as well.
And I think that is sort of part of the point that we wanted to make, this month about Art Class Curator, is the art making is a big part of it. There
Yes.
is still art making and projects that are going to be part of it. And at the high school level, it really gives them a huge opportunity to use choice and use their voice and develop a style and learn a wide variety of things and test out different techniques and procedures. And you still get those foundations of art. And what I like, I tend to mind map, and I don't know if you can see from the overhead. I use ballpoint pen, and sometimes I use a Sharpie, but it's where you do the circles and you mind map, and I end up writing outside of the circles anyways. But a few things that I wrote down while you were talking is like the whole choice and direct based. In World Mosaic, which is the elementary version, it's more direct because they're learning. And so that's really great. As it goes into the high school, there's direct and then there is choice-based. And because they've learned some of these techniques at a younger age, it's great because now they build off of it. So you've got this really great sort of sequential way of developing the art as well as the knowledge of the art and the artist. I also liked, I love the framework of curate, discuss, engage, extend, and reflect. You can then even do so with somebody else's piece of art. You know what I mean? Because now you have the tools to do discussion with students, and you do it and you teach them in a way that is, like you said, safe and respectful. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Collaborative for Academic Social and Emotional Learning, CASEL. They have developed the 5 framework core competencies of social awareness, self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, responsible decision-making, and relationships. And we know that those happen in the art room pretty organically and pretty often. To be able to take your curriculum and show it and prove it really puts you in it really elevates art education in your school and in your district, because you're crossing off those initiatives that are important to your administrators. Does anybody have any questions at this point? We have about 9 minutes, and I don't want to keep chatting because I'll ramble for sure. But I want to take any questions that anybody has.
Oh, what I was just going to add to that, some of the things that we would do activities, some of the activities that had those really deeper learning, and we do it on a separate sheet and then hang it out in the hall with the artwork that we were looking at. So very much putting it out there, putting it on display so that everybody sees there's a lot more going on than, sometimes people just think, we're making crafts and painting or whatever. We're like, no, there's a lot more going in on this class.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we're thinking very deeply and we're discussing very deeply. So
everybody always thinks the art room is just where everything is fun and beautiful, and They have no idea.
And it's fun and beautiful, but we can think and really deeply too.
Oh,
Really
right.
deeply.
Yes. And in fact, whether it's, you talked about, the poems and the activities and the safe environment and I like the ethical responsibility and the ownership. And it is all things that really are training you for life,
For
training you for jobs and training you for how to interact, whether you're traveling or whether you're vacationing, just interacting at the grocery store.
For sure.
It is college and career ready kind of skills that are the art teachers are very well known for anyways. And I always applaud you for that. I will tell you a little bit about the curriculum is $1,000. And often I get worried that everybody's going to click off right there because no art teacher can write a check for $1,000. But, and maybe you can, hopefully you can, but we don't want you to. We want you to go to your administrator, whether it's your principal or your curriculum supervisor or the superintendent or whoever, because there really is money available for curriculum and art should be included, particularly art that includes SEL and cross-curricular and really college to career readiness. And so that $1,000 includes everything that you saw. It includes the 10 units, the full curriculum, all of the worksheets, the professional development, but it is also housed on Nasco Educate, which is also a K-12 platform. It's a resource for teachers, and it has its own content on it, wide variety of stuff, lesson plans, professional development webinars, videos, demonstration videos, some interviews, all kinds of things that are on there. And that is where we deliver the curriculum to teachers and to the school. And so when you purchase Perspectives, Nasco Educate subscription comes with it, and both then become a school site. So you can actually share it with the other teachers that are in the school, which maybe they're not necessarily interested in the art curriculum, although there's really lots of opportunities to do some co-teaching and partnering, but the other content on Nasco Educate, that is hard when you don't see it and we don't demonstrate it, but that's where I would suggest, if you're interested, please let me know. I would be more than happy to take some time to demo it to you, to the other teachers at your school, or to your principal, whether it's a group or whether it's an individual. I'm happy to take you on that deep dive, as they call it, to really show it to you and show how it gets delivered in each little component. And certainly any questions that you have and how it would fit into what you're doing, because it's nice to get to know somebody and hear how it might fit into some of the curriculum you're doing. I spoke to somebody earlier today who said, there's a moment where we do art around the state of California, and we do art about Mesopotamia. And so it's great to be able to say this curriculum can tie into your state artwork. It can tie into a culture that maybe isn't represented. Although I gotta say, the representation is vast and diverse, and you'll be really pleased with it. So with that, any other questions that you might have, you will get an email, and I believe with the email comes a survey. I can never remember when the survey comes out, but certainly you can respond to the email. I am Chris Bakke. I'm certainly willing to have you send me an email, but we're more than happy to talk further. Look for more webinars. Next month, we'll be doing some more webinars. I think next month we're going to focus a little bit on the diversity and the equity. That's a big question, and lots of teachers are concerned about how to teach it and how to make it safe and appropriate for the classroom. So we want you to keep coming back, but if you have any questions or want to do a demo, by all means, reach out to me. Jen, thank you. Thank you for all the time that you put into your artwork and to demonstrating for us. We appreciate it. And we'll see you again soon. Have a great week, everybody, and keep coming back.
Thanks for having me.